Now for me, the most fun I have on any restoration is right at the very end when the last few pieces come together and then you have to schedule the assembly. Now I remember when I did the R1 starter, I had to replace the starter in this after 7 or 8 years, and I had parts all over the garage, and I was so glad when it came time to put those final parts back. Now the FZR is just a little bit different. Of course, it's a lot more restoration. We're into the 4th month, and it's pretty much time we got to pull that back wheel off. Once it warms up a little, it's just really brutal out here, and it snowed last night, so somewhere during the course of this day or tomorrow, that back wheel's coming off. And what I'm doing this morning, before I take Karen out shopping, I'm looking for, you see the back wheel you see a lot more of than the front wheel. So this whole area in here, I'm going to make sure it has a beautiful, beautiful finish on it. The center of that hub will refinish, of course. While I have it out, I'll repolish part of the swing arm. The axle will get polished. So we've got a week of work just doing that wheel, maybe a little bit more. But we're not going to skimp on it, that's for sure. Not at this point. And the exhaust system came out good enough until somebody finds me a nice EXUP system. That'll have to do. So with all the battery charges flipped and with everything, boy, it's cold out here. Every time I come out here and I think it's not going to be that cold this morning. The sun is out. The sun is out, but it's 28 degrees. And so it's just a light coating of snow. It's still below freezing. We got ice on the pond. So I try to sequence up a day, if I can, of doing stuff downstairs. And what else does anybody do on the temperature is down to this temperature? It's time for another cup of coffee. Now as I come down to the cellar, I have to think about how to lay out this day to be effective, to be efficient. And one of the things Karen is always willing to do is help me lay out the day, which we've done already this morning. We had several errands to do, shopping things and whatnot, and she knows I don't want to be out in the cold garage when it's under 30 degrees if I don't have to be. Today I don't have to be, of course, and even if I skipped a couple of days, it wouldn't even matter. We're so far ahead on some of these projects. I actually have made this so efficient in a lot of ways that I've got time to spare, and Glenn is going to be coming down, and so is Turbo Steve with some little projects to work on. So I look at the project table here while I'm getting ready to go shopping, and I think, what a great idea. If you can somehow do your shopping or something that will let the garage warm up a few degrees, because pulling that wheel off a few minutes that I have to be out there, it's going to be cold. It's not going to be an enjoyable part of the day. And that's the point I wanted to pass on. If you can schedule work, if you're always thinking in terms of don't paint on a rainy day, the sequencing is so important. When it's really cold outside, try to plan some work inside. When it's really nice outside, you want to go riding or work. Now, I learned a really valuable lesson many, many times during these restorations. I'd get to this part where it would be summer is coming, and we're 2 months away from summer. We really have 2 months left on this restoration. The time is coming, and you're itching to get outside and put the bike together. Well, to put the whole bike together again is very little amount of time, 1 or 2 days the most. But if you rush it and you go out there when it's freezing cold, as an example, putting a fairing on and hooking up the lights and everything and doing the wiring there, when it's freezing cold, you're bound to scratch or chip or make a problem for yourself. I need the tank. I still didn't get those brand new O-rings. They're supposed to be on back order. I have never gotten them yet. So I don't want to put gas in the tank until I know those O-rings are sealed. So I don't want to get to this point and be tempted to rush this through. That's the message of the day. And later, either later today or tomorrow morning, depending on how the day plays out, we got to go pull that back wheel off. Once the back wheel is done, then we got to start thinking about what we want to do for an assembly sequencing, and we want to do it on a day it's not 28 degrees. That's for sure. But everything so far has come out so nice, I don't want to jeopardize it now. It's like running out the clock on a football game. You know you're going to win. Now another thing I'm always evaluating, and in this case I made what I thought was a smart choice. See, by having everything buffed in the center of the wheel hubs, you do see it because of the way these laid out. You do see that. See, sometimes there's certain bikes you probably wouldn't see, or something would obscure it, but on this wheel, I think that wheel is just really exceeded my wildest dream. So now what I want to do is, from this, I want to learn that lesson, that all this area in here, see, I can see that radius, I can see all this area here, it's all polished, it's all buffed, but that back wheel, when I do get to pull the back wheel, that's going to be critical, so I'll spend extra time in by the hub, especially on the sprocket side, because the sprocket has that gold sprox and the shiny black. The whole look of that front end of the bike changes just from one little detail like that. Now, the other thing, when I take the green bike, the Ninja, and change to the black wheels, changes the whole look of the bike. It's amazing how having just the wheels, it changes the whole look of the bike. And boy, am I glad when I did the concept sketches. I don't know what I was thinking. See, and Karen is absolutely right. It's why I always trust her judgment. Having this wheel, it's not going to accent the gold. By having this wheel black now, you can change the whole look of a bike or a part just by, and here's the perfect reason. When you have something you want to accent, putting black right next to it, it really accents it out. And I think that's what's going to happen with the shocks when we get to do these. And again, I'm waiting for a warm day. I have learned that lesson. When you're trying to do something and your hands are frozen, you're not going to ride tomorrow anyway. There's no way. So I may as well take my time and have another cup of coffee, because when I do get to pull that wheel, I don't want it to be that I scratch anything, break anything. This is really, I wish people could see this in real life. It probably doesn't look bad. It looks good on my widescreen TV, but I know on a cell phone, But now, all the time I put into this so far and all the patience, it has all paid off now. Now as we go through our errands and shopping and everything, I see every 2 minutes it's going up a degree. The snow is all melted from this morning. Wow, what a smart move not going out to that garage. It's probably over freezing right now by a couple of degrees. It'll be a lot more fun pulling that wheel this afternoon. And there is my favorite old car. This guy does work on my car from time to time. We got an old Chevy. Now it's going to be a lot warmer in this garage right now, even though most of the, a lot of the snow is melted. It'll still be warmer. So step one is I've got to get the jack the back end off the ground. Since you can't use the back stand in this case, because we're going to take the wheel out. So I've got to get the back end jacked up with a car jack, then take that out and maybe put that rod back in, and then lower it back on the stand so I don't have the jack there the whole time. Seems like it's more involved than it should be. Let's see, because the FZR has hollow axles front and back, they don't put spools on the back for conveniently using this. So it just makes this part of it just a little bit, I guess wouldn't be a big deal to put spools on there in the future, but just makes it a little inconvenient. All right, we're ready to pull that wheel. And step one always is to get the caliper off and get it up out of the way. If you don't do that, you still can do this job, but boy, does it get tricky at the end. And with the caliper up out of the way, the rest of the job, pretty straightforward. Then we can put the rod back in there. Well, I don't know if we can. Or we just leave the jack here forever. I don't know. So it looks like the most practical way is just put that rod through the hollow axle, put it back on the stand. I just don't want to leave it hanging on that car jack, and I don't know why. But anyway, we always have the safety thing of having it up on a come along too. Because we don't have a real alternative here, that looks like it's going to work fine. Now the next thing is to get everything down into the cellar where I underestimated how cold it was out here. I'm starting to get cold already. Anyway, time to bring things downstairs and start the cleanup process. And a wheel obviously is the biggest part of this, but that's not the only part. And a lot of times just cleaning up all these spacers and all these posts, I want to refinish everything, of course. I want this to be like brand new. I want to polish these to like a really nice finish. And these have an anodized surface, so it's going to be it's going to be more work doing that than what you really expect. But anyway, it's back to that thing of the labor of love. Another thing, I want to clean up that inside of the hub and paint that. That's really one of the ratty parts. I want to clean up the sprocket area, polish the bolts. If we're going to do this, we may as well do it right. And even when I did the green bike, some of the little details, I know we were up at Perry's one day and Big Jim noticed. He says, "Wow, when did you even painted that? Oh, wow." He's all excited about it. Well, he's right. And sometimes you're impressed and you don't know why, and something just looks right and you don't know why, but you always know it. So the reality is it's not only the wheel, that's the biggest part, but all of this little hardware, all of these bolts, I want everything like brand new when we put this back together. Now, as my friend George Venturini, the late George Venturini, told me, we were renovating a two-family house that I owned a long time ago. And when we took all the lath off and we were putting up the sheetrock, he said, "Yay, we got it down to the studs. Yay, oh, the day we had it down to the studs, it was a big..." Well, today we have it down to the studs. I wonder if you could pick two people could pick that up and move it right now. I don't know. Well, not two people my age anyway. And just as a small point of interest, an FZR has a very unique cush drive. Some of the rubbers are bigger. The ones that decelerate are smaller than the ones the acceleration ones. And the holes are just different enough that you can't put them in backwards, which probably is a good design. Because somebody like me, I'd probably put them in backwards, but I want to clean these all up, of course. When I put the motorcycle back together, I want it to be like putting a new motorcycle together. That's the whole objective. Now our Sprox has about 15,000 miles on it and it doesn't show any signs of wear at all. But of course we want this all cleaned up. And all these spacers, if you look at them close, the kind of wear and tear you get after this 35,000, 34,000 miles. All these parts are going to get renewed like brand new. Now what I did, I brought in, I really never do this inside unless it's really, really cold. And it's really cold. I really underestimated how cold it was out there from being out doing errands. But brought in a little, that's ordinary diesel fuel for cleaning, doing a basic cleanup here. We're only going to be able to get some of it done today, but we'll get done whatever we can, of course. Come through with red Loctite, and it looks like this one has got something jamming the bolts up. Boy, they are really in there. Now, on the R1, I replaced the bolts. I was just afraid I'd have a problem. On this one, I don't know. I'm hoping it's not going to be a problem. Yeah, they're so Loctited in, but that's why we do the restoration. So here's a typical example of what I'm talking about. That bolt obviously is Loctited or red Loctited, who knows. But you can see how, because of it's been taken out and back and forth, see how sloppy the wrench has gotten in there? Well, the reason is the bolt and the wrench have both gotten sloppy. So if I put the other end of the wrench in there, it's a lot tighter. So what I need to do is just take this wrench over to the grindstone and grind some of that off so we have sharp corners again. That'll keep this. If I just keep doing this, I'm going to round out that bolt and I'll be in, I'll have to go to plan B then. Okay, now the idea that I'm going to try to do here is cut the end of that where it's radiused off, where it's rounded off, and then grind the last little bit. Now what that does, that's going to give me a much sharper edge where this is already rounded off. And sometimes you have to use up half the wrench to do it. See, the problem is half of the time it's that the thing just strips out in there. Now I don't know if this is going to help. I put an extension on this. I haven't tried heat yet, but I'm telling you, this is, oh my God. Oh! I don't know if that loosened up or not, or if the wrench just slipped. But anyway, we're going to have to, no point renting a camera in, we're going to have to really work on these bolts either with heat. I'm going to go put some WD-40 on them right now, some heat, whatever, and keep the wrench, most of all, keep the wrench nice and sharp. Several of the bolts came out, but there's always one or two that you really have to work on, and there's an endless supply of things to get these out. In the very end, you give up. No, I'm just kidding. We will get them out. But keeping a wrench sharp, see, it almost should be that you have, I wanted to show this. When you're done, if you hammer that wrench, oops, the bolt should almost stick in there. Once this gets sloppy, you're going on a slippery slope to nowhereville. We got a few bolts here that are really going to be a problem to get out. I can see that. Now I always go down my list of things that work and things that don't work, but you never know what's going to work. Usually it's these bolts get stripped out. That's the problem. We'll try a little heat, we'll try a little WD-40, and if we have to, sometimes this isn't pretty. In fact, it's almost never pretty. What am I talking about? Now, of course, those bolts are going to be hot. So we are really having a booger of a time. This is eating up a better part of the day here. But I want to show at the end of this what always works. We're going to replace the bolts. So that's number one, because these bolts are starting to all get chewed up. What happens? You have an Allen wrench. And I'm not sure if somebody else invented this, but I figured this out the hard way one night when I couldn't get a bolt out. What I did, I have these, I don't know what they even call these things, star points. Well, there's always a star point that's just a little bit bigger than the Allen wrench, and you can just touch the corners on a grindstone. And now watch how this works, because this is really, really a good trick. And it for me, it worked on the R1 even. It worked here. Now it doesn't really go in. It's not the exact shape. Of course, it would be nice if you had these attachments with Allen. We don't. But what happens when you hammer this in, it makes a much tighter fit. And it's that tighter fit that allows you to get the bolt out. See, we're not having a problem with the amount of power we're putting into this. We're putting plenty of power in. The problem is, this is the weak point. It's like the clutch face that's slipping. So the first thing is to hammer these in real good. Then if you have a helper, which I don't have any helpers ever, is press down on that as hard as you possibly can, maybe even with your whole body weight. There we go. Ooh, it's almost like I staged this. Oh! Now because these are really, this is going to be a forever to get this out, but you can see it's coming out. And that's one of the tips worth watching a whole video for. Oh man, when you struggle with bolts like this, it just makes me crazy. Everything is working against you because it's that interface between the wrench and the bolt. It's not the bolt. If I could grab this with a pair of vice grips, I could get this out. Of course, the bolts, they're not, I think when I put these back, I'm going to put Allen bolts in there. But I got to check to make sure they clear everything. We're going to find out the hard way. One way or another. One way or the other, but it looks like maybe this is getting us out of the, I don't know. But if you've watched this whole video and you're bored to death, this is, ow, it's still hot. This is one that's worth it. And this is the whole key. It's that interface. You got to hammer that in. It gets a good bite. because usually the wrench is harder than the bolt, so it makes its own teeth. And that is a good trick. Now I know Luciano will remember this story well. He had a steering dampener on one of the Ducatis that we had a bolt that absolutely would not come out. And I took the Dremel tool and made a head on the bolt with a Dremel tool, which this is going to be difficult. There's one bolt still won't come out. And I'm thinking if I have another cup of coffee it'll come out, but there's always one. It's unbelievable. I had this exact problem before, and that's why a set of these wrenches is less than $10. It's the day you need them, like today. Look at that bolt is in there, so it pulls the wrench apart. You can hang the wrench. That's what has to happen. That interface has to be solid, or you're dead in the water here. So I have to tell you, there is joy, and when you get that last bolt that doesn't want to come out, wow, I can't tell you how happy I am. This really, it's frustrating. Doing a restoration is always hard, dirty work. That's why a lot of people buy a new bike. And I can't blame them either. Maybe I'll be buying one next year. But anyway, if you look at how much Loctite is on there, and for all I know, I might have been the one to do it, but it's blue Loctite, it's not red. But that disc is red hot for me heating it. In fact, it's so hot, I can't get it off right now. There we go. Wow! Son of a gun. Wow! It's hot on that side. Anyway, I hope some of that information helped. We got a lot of cleanup to do on the wheel, a lot of cleanup on the parts. It's been a long day. You can get some idea how much work we have to do in there, but the first thing I want to do before I do anything, because see all the crap that's in here? This is all going to get cleaned, steam cleaned, everything, but I wanted to make sure nothing gets down in by the bearing. And I'll do the same thing to the other side, of course. Now I would never use these bolts over again since we've already loosened up the fitting, but we do have new bolts. But believe me, that whole trick with the star wrenches, I'm not sure somebody else invented it. The good news is it doesn't even matter. We're not getting paid. But if it helps you, then in a way we are getting paid, and you get the benefit of it. But every piece here, now I'm going to intensively clean it up, because again, what I want to do is put it back together like a new bike. Like I just bought parts from Yamaha and I'm putting a new, except I want to be better than if I bought them from Yamaha. Newer and fresher and cleaner and more polished and who the hell knows what. That's the fun of doing a restoration. And if you have the patience to stay tuned, it'll look like that when I'm done. Believe me, it will. And I won't sleep until it looks like that. It will look like that. And those bolts will come out. So I do feel a sense of accomplishment, but I wanted to emphasize, this is from, let's just get it on a camera, Harbor Freight. I believe it was $10. Now it's even worse. It's even worse. It's even better. What I did, you can see a couple of them are missing. I broke one. And I don't remember what I was doing with it. But you can see I've ground away at some of the other ones too. It works on every size. I went back to Harbor Freight with just this, and I said, can I go take one off the shelf? And he said, just take a whole new set. So I really have two sets of them now. And they give you the whole second set without even bringing the other one back. You just show them that one is broken. How can you not like Harbor Freight? Somehow it doesn't seem like this would be that much work just to pull a back wheel off the bike and pull it all apart for restoration purposes. But you know what? It really is a bigger job because of the cold weather and because I had a lot of errands today. And Karen has just told me I better get my ass upstairs. Supper is getting ready. And here's another thing now. The reason I don't want to start this today, I really hope I can do some of this when the baby is not going to be here. Because this stinks up the house. It smells like a gas station for a day or two. And I'd hope I can minimize this. This is just an ordinary sprayer. And I'll save that for, well, next couple of days we'll be having some adventures in paradise here. And we're due to have an 18 day, among other things. But you never know how things are going to play out. This day played out unlike what I thought it was. And there's half of my day right there to get 6 bolts out. But I hope it was really good information you can use to your advantage. And if it is, we both win. This is the part I always like at the end of a work day. looking at the next day's project and dreaming about the day this wheel is going to look just like that front wheel. And you got to be able to see it before it happens. You got to kind of envision it. I'm looking at it. It's going to be a couple of days of hard work, but boy, at the end, because this wheel you see a lot more of than the front wheel. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I see it. The gods see everywhere. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope your bolts don't get stuck like mine did. Have a great day, and I hope you'll watch the next video and the next couple, see how this wheel turned out. Thanks for watching.